Hey there, welcome to or welcome back to the channel. I'm Ashwat Singh, and on this channel we demystify life and technology. In this video, I'll be showcasing my active recall system I use in Capacities. But before we get into that, let me talk to you about what active recall is. So active recall is based on the forgetting curve, which looks like this. The forgetting curve is basically a curve that shows that if you don't remember or recall information over a period of time, it'll eventually fade from your memory exponentially. And that's why active recall comes in. Active recall tries to stimulate your memory into remembering information so you can remember it for longer periods of time. And over long periods of time, when you keep revising over spaced intervals, you're able to push the forgetting curve outwards so you remember the information much longer in your brain. So basically, active recall can be done in two ways. One way is through digital note-taking apps by using their toggle features, or by Quizlet as well, which I'll come to in the second way. So basically the idea is that in the toggle you'll have the question which you're answering, and within that toggle you'll have the answer to that question. So basically you'll have a list of questions in a particular page and you'll go over them one by one, and once you're done answering them, you'll check the answer. So like for example, you have your first question, you think about what the answer is, you click the toggle and see what the answer is. And you compare your answer that you said in your mind to what you had written. If you're extremely close to it, that's really good, because that means you remember information. If you remember some points, that's good as well, but come back to it soon. And if you don't remember any part of it, then mark it as read or mark it in a particular way so that you know that you have to come back to this particular topic to revise it. And the second way is by using physical flashcards like this. So basically the idea is that you'll have the question on one side, such as for example, what is SDLC? And you'll have the answer on the back, system development life cycle. So basically the idea of that is you'll basically be looking at a stack of questions and you'll be answering it one by one. And if you got all the points that you've written on the back of the card, you can set it off to another place so that you can revise it at a later date. Now, some apps do make this easier, such as Anki. I personally haven't used it, but I've heard that it's really good if you like to use flashcards. Now, another thing is that active recall should not be confused with another revision technique called recognition. So recognition is basically the idea where you feel like you know the answer, but you wouldn't be able to reconstruct it without additional help. By this I mean like how in MCQs you usually know what the answer is due to the context, such as you know that this must be the most correct answer out of all of these, and you usually may end up correct. So that's why people often prefer active recall, because with active recall you have no context given to you, it's just a question and you have to figure out what the answer is. So that makes it harder and gives you a truer perspective of how well you remember information. Whereas with recognition you may not get a full picture of it, and it may just be because of how the options were placed. Then another part of this also comes with passive review. So passive review is like almost the opposite of active recall, in the sense that in active recall you actively recall information, but in passive review you're reading information. So this could mean like notes, this could mean textbooks, PPTs, etc. So you constantly keep rereading them to put them into your memory, and this can get a bit boring even if it's a long PPT. I've experienced that. And that's why I shifted to active recall, because I saw that as more actively engaging with the material and remembering it better as well. So what happens in passive reviews is that you often take notes on information. And this is the most important sort of like cornerstone of my active recall system. So obviously in the first reading, I don't have my questions with me. So what I do is I always take notes on it, picking out the most important points that I see in that particular chapter and setting them aside, which will turn into my questions later on. So then once I'm done revising or going over the chapter passively, then I actively convert them to questions, which I'll be revising later on in my active recall session. So basically my active recall system consists of passive review and active recall. Passive review in the sense that I pick up the most important points and understand what all is important in that particular chapter, and then convert those to questions. And then after that, I revise them and mark them with my red, amber, green system. Now the red, amber, green system is something that a lot of people use, and I also found that I like that the most. So basically the idea behind this is sort of like traffic lights. So red means you have to stop, you don't remember this. So basically by putting red, I know that this is something I have to come back to the next time or come back to it soon. Amber means I remembered most of the information, but not all of it. And green means I remembered all of it, which means I did a great job by remembering that point. So basically, if you want to know what my active recall system is in steps, it first starts with passive review, where basically I'm reading the coursework and the course material and taking the main pointers out of it. Then after that, I summarize those points and make them into questions, such as framing questions around them. Then number 3 basically comes to doing my first revision, which will often be a day or two after I do the passive review. And essentially, I'll be marking questions red, amber, green like that. And then after that, I'll basically be, once I finish the whole process, then I'll review that page. I'll see how many green, how many ambers, how many reds are there, and decide what's the next best option. Should I revise this tomorrow? Should I revise it after 4 days, 5 days? And usually I don't use like 3, 5, 9 like that. I just decide it by myself, deciding how soon I want to do it. So basically, that's my active recall system. It starts with passive review, getting the notes, making the questions, revising, reviewing, and then coming back to it. So now let me go back there and let me show you how this system works in action. In case you haven't already watched my video about my workflow and capacities, you can check it out up here because all of this is covered in that video. So now coming back to this, my active recall system. So basically I have an IB object with each subject as a separate object within it. And basically in that I have each page devoted to a particular chapter. Like you can see here like topic 1, topic 2, topic 3 like that. So basically this is what it's based around. So if I open one of these, let's say computer organization, and I open this as a separate page, you can see that I have all of my stuff over here, which is basically a summarized outline of the entire chapter. And in each one I have questions. So basically what happens is that I have these questions, I answer them in my mind. Like let's for example take an example like what is an interrupt. So like for example in my mind I'd be answering that like it's a signal sent from a software or hardware device to a CPU to suspend its current execution to decide what to do next and all that kind of stuff. So basically then I'll see, okay fine, so I have answered all the points in it, so that's something that I remember properly. Then after that I have another question within it, what are the types of interrupts? So I'll be like, okay fine, so there's IO, timer, software, hardware. So basically then within that I'll be able to see all of these points. So basically that's how my active recall system works. So basically I answer a question and I open a toggle and see where I got it correct. And if there's more questions I answer those as well. And that's primarily the reason why I chose to do this through a digital note-taking app, because oftentimes there's more and more information you need to remember for each chapter, and on a flashcard it's pretty hard to do that because it's like 2 sides basically. But here I can keep having more and more toggles as much as I require. Such as over here I also have timer like this, so then I can also answer that kind of question. Now every time I finish answering a question, I'll compare how well my answer was to this. So for example, like over here I've covered all the points, so I'll mark it green. Then over here I covered all the points as well, so I'll mark that green as well. And I'll do this for every single question that is over here, and after that I'll review this particular page, like see, okay fine, how many green, how many amber, how many red are there. And by doing this I'm able to understand how well I understand that particular topic. So for example over here I have a lot of green, so by doing this I'll be able to understand, okay fine, I can come back to this at a later date, like maybe in a week or time or so. But if there's more amber, like for example this in a particular page, I'll probably come back to it in 4 to 5 days or maybe even 3 days. But if it's red, I'll usually put a reminder on the calendar as well to revise this particular topic because that's important to revise. And I'll probably come back to it in a day or two itself. And essentially after every revision, I'll have a date last revised change, such like over here, let's see that it's 7th June for me. So I'll basically click 7th June here. And basically now I know that the last time I revised this was on this particular date. And since I'm using interstitial journaling now, I'll also write it in that particular thing with the timestamp when I completed it, so I can understand a history of when I revised this particular topic. Now also oftentimes you do forget when you need to revise something or what you needed to revise, and that's why I find this table view very useful, because by doing this I can see when I last revised a particular topic, and by doing this I can understand what to revise next. Just for example, if I look over here and see, okay fine, something's been done only 2 weeks ago, I'll probably revise that as well. So basically as a combination of 2 things here. First is my red, amber, green system, which basically means that I'm looking at how well I remembered something and then reviewing it as to how well I did it as well. Then after that, then I also write it down about when I did it as well in the daily note. So basically that allows me to see a history of how well I've understood it and also a history of when I revised that particular information. So basically that's my active recall system, and again a summary. The 5 main steps is firstly passive review, reading all of my material and writing bullet points about it, then converting those bullet points to questions, then revising those questions, marking them red, amber, green based on my red, amber, green system, then reviewing that page and deciding when I should revise it next, and basically the last step, which will be deciding the date, which either means going to the calendar and putting it as a soon task, or coming back to it at some later date when I come back to this particular page. And that's basically my whole active recall system. So that is my entire active recall system that I use during the IB program to remember information. In case you found it to be useful, be sure to like this video so that the YouTube algorithm knows this is a good video. And be sure to subscribe to the channel because I'll be making a lot more capacities content and a lot more content like this. And in case you have any questions, be sure to ask me in the comment section down below. I am always ready to respond to your questions. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.